All right, listen up, because this is one of those moments. You just got that text. You know the one. The ex who ghosted you, breadcrumbed you, ran from real intimacy like it was a burning building. Yeah, that ex. And now they're back in your inbox with a casual, hey, have you been? Like they didn't just disappear when things got real. Now, here's the deal. How you respond to this message isn't just about them, it's about you. It's about boundaries, it's about self-respect, it's about breaking the cycle. Because this isn't just a text, it's a test of your growth, your healing, and your power to choose what and who you allow back into your life. So before you hit reply, let's take a deep breath and let's talk about the exact mindset, words, and strategy you need to respond from a place of clarity, not emotion. You ready? Let's go. When that text from your avoidant ex shows up on your phone, the very first instinct most people have is to react. You might feel a rush of emotion, excitement, confusion, anger, even a flicker of hope. Your mind starts racing. Why now? Do they miss me? Should I answer? What if they've changed? That emotional roller coaster is totally normal. But here's the thing. You don't want to make decisions when you're in that state. That's exactly why the first step is to pause before you react. This pause isn't about playing games or trying to seem aloof. It's about reclaiming your power and giving yourself space to separate the trigger from your response. When someone who emotionally avoided connection suddenly reappears, it can stir up a lot, especially if the relationship ended without clarity, without closure, or with lingering emotional wounds. So instead of falling into the old rhythm of instant replies, hit the brake, give yourself time to think. In that pause, ask yourself some hard but necessary questions. Why is this bothering me so much? What do I want from this interaction? Am I looking for validation? Am I secretly hoping they've changed? When you stop and reflect, you allow your logical mind to step in before your emotional mind takes the wheel. Avoidant partners often leave others feeling emotionally starved, unseen, or confused. When they reach out again, it's easy to misinterpret that message as an apology, a change of heart, or a second chance. But it's just a text. That's all it is until proven otherwise. Pausing helps you remember your journey since the breakup. Maybe you've done a lot of healing. Maybe you've built your self-esteem back up or started understanding your attachment patterns. That healing deserves protection. Don't let a few words on a screen throw you back into emotional chaos. When you pause, you create space to honor everything you learned and how far you've come. Another thing to consider is this: what's your body telling you? When you saw their name pop up, did your chest tighten? Did your stomach drop? Did your heart race? Your body is incredibly wise. It often reacts before your mind can even catch up. Listen to that physical response. It holds the truth. If your gut is signaling discomfort, don't ignore it. That's your nervous system, remembering what it felt like to be with someone who couldn't meet you where you needed to be met. Pausing also helps you move from reaction to intention. When you're reactive, you're letting the past control your present. You're handing your emotional power back to someone who, let's be honest, didn't know what to do with it the first time around. But when you pause and respond with intention, you're acting from a place of strength and self-respect. You get to decide what kind of energy you allow in your life. And that decision starts with a moment of stillness. Sometimes that pause reveals that you don't need to respond at all. And that's valid. Silence is a response. Not replying is a boundary. Not engaging is a powerful statement that says, I've moved on and I choose peace. Other times, the pause helps you find the words that reflect who you are now, not who you were when you were still tangled in that relationship. So the next time that text comes through, take a breath, put your phone down, go for a walk, call a friend who reminds you of your worth, journal your feelings. Let the initial wave of emotion pass before you do anything. That one moment of pausing might just be the difference between falling into an old cycle and stepping into a new chapter. Recognizing the pattern is one of the most powerful things you can do when dealing with an avoidant ex who suddenly decides to reach out. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, seeing that text can feel like a lifeline or a surprise twist in your story. But if you step back and really look at what's happening, it's often not a new beginning, it's a replay. And this time you need to be awake enough to see it for what it is. Avoidant partners tend to follow predictable behavioral cycles. They get close, Things start to feel intense or intimate, and suddenly they pull away, they ghost, they become emotionally distant, or they shut down communication altogether. Maybe they told you they weren't ready for something serious or needed space. Then out of nowhere, they pop back up again like nothing happened. This isn't usually a genuine act of love or reflection. It's part of the avoidance cycle. And if you don't recognize it, you'll get pulled right back into the same emotional loop you worked so hard to escape. Take a minute to ask yourself, has this happened before? Think back to your relationship. Were there moments when connections started to build and then suddenly something shifted? Did they pull away when things got too real? Did they leave you confused, questioning what you did wrong, even though deep down you knew it wasn't about you? If any of that sounds familiar, then you're likely seeing a pattern repeat itself. Avoidants often reach out when they feel a sense of distance or loss. It's not necessarily because they want to reconnect in a meaningful way. Sometimes it's about soothing their own anxiety. They don't like feeling like someone has moved on without them. They may not want a deep, committed relationship, but they also don't want to be forgotten. So they reach out not to give something to you, but to take something for themselves, reassurance, control, or validation. And unless you've done the inner work to spot this cycle, it's easy to mistake their reappearance for something deeper than it is. Here's where things get tricky. The moment they reach out, your brain might light up with hope. Maybe this time it'll be different. But the truth is, people don't break patterns overnight, especially deep-rooted emotional ones like avoidance. If they haven't shown any signs of real introspection, growth, or accountability, chances are they're still operating from the same emotional script. And if you're not careful, you'll fall right back into your old role too, the one where you overfunction, chase clarity, and tolerate crumbs hoping for a feast. Recognizing the pattern gives you clarity. It lets you detach from the fantasy of what could be and face what actually is. It reminds you that this isn't a one-time event, it's a behavioral loop, and unless something fundamentally changes, it's going to repeat. That awareness is your power. It allows you to respond, not from a place of longing, but from a place of wisdom. Now ask yourself, how did you feel when they left last time? How much energy did you spend trying to understand their silence? How many nights did you question your worth because they couldn't show up for you in the way you needed? All of that matters. It's part of the pattern, too. And just because they're reaching out now doesn't mean they're suddenly ready to break it. Change doesn't happen with a text. Change happens with consistent actions, reflection, and emotional growth. Have you seen any of that yet? Recognizing the pattern doesn't mean you have to hold on to anger or resentment. It means you honor your experience enough to stop romanticizing someone who repeatedly caused you pain. It means you stop looking at the past through a soft focus lens and start seeing it clearly, with all the missing pieces, all the discomfort, and all the emotional absence that came with it. And once you recognize the pattern, you get to choose something different. You don't have to keep living the same story. You can write a new one where you don't settle for emotional inconsistency, one where you're no longer available for mixed signals, half-hearted efforts, and recycled drama. That starts by seeing the pattern, owning your truth, and deciding you deserve better, because you do. Protecting your peace is not just a phrase, it's a lifestyle choice, a boundary, and a form of self-respect that becomes especially important when someone from your past, particularly an avoidant ex, tries to re-enter your life. When you've worked hard to rebuild yourself after emotional confusion, heartbreak, or the draining push-pull dynamic of an avoidant relationship, your peace becomes sacred. It's something you earn through healing, clarity, and sometimes painful growth. So when that unexpected message from them pops up, your first responsibility is not to the relationship you used to have or the potential you once saw. It's to the peace you've built in their absence. Avoidant individuals often don't realize or choose not to take responsibility for the emotional chaos they leave behind. Their silence, their disappearances, their inability to communicate in a healthy, consistent way, those things create deep emotional wounds for the people they pull close and then push away. And when they reappear without any clear accountability or change, they risk reigniting that same chaos. Protecting your peace means you don't let them take you back to a place you've outgrown. Think about what peace looks like in your life right now. Maybe it's the fact that your emotions aren't swinging wildly anymore. Maybe it's sleeping better at night. Maybe it's the fact that you're no longer checking your phone constantly, wondering if they'll reach out. That calm you feel, that's peace. That's your nervous system finally regulating after being constantly triggered by inconsistency. It's your mind finding stillness where there used to be confusion. And that's not something you trade for a few nice words or a sudden apology. When you allow someone back into your space without considering how it might affect your emotional well-being, you're putting your peace on the line. And for what? For a conversation that might not go anywhere? For a glimpse of a changed version of someone who hasn't actually shown growth, just interest? For a short-lived feeling of being wanted? You've got to be honest with yourself about what you're risking. Peace is built on boundaries. It's built on saying no to things that once left you anxious, unsure, and emotionally drained. It's built on learning to sit with the discomfort of letting go of someone who couldn't meet you where you needed them. And it's built on choosing your long-term well-being over short-term emotional highs. That means when someone who triggered emotional instability comes back into the picture, your default isn't to engage, it's to evaluate. You check in with yourself. You ask, what does engaging with this person cost me? Sometimes we confuse peace with numbness or boredom. When you're used to the emotional roller coaster of being with someone who's hot and cold, the calm that comes after leaving can feel empty at first. But that emptiness is actually space. It's room for better things to enter your life. Things rooted in stability, mutual respect, and emotional maturity. Protecting your peace is about allowing that space to stay open for the right people, not filled by the ones who couldn't value it the first time. You're not obligated to entertain anyone who disrupts your sense of calm just because they were once important to you. Love doesn't mean tolerating chaos. Caring about someone doesn't mean sacrificing your emotional balance. Sometimes the kindest, most loving thing you can do for yourself is to say, no, I'm not letting this energy back into my life. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not reply at all. It's not about being cold or unforgiving. It's about being protective. You've healed too much to reopen wounds that someone wasn't careful with. Peace doesn't always announce itself with fireworks, but it's powerful. It's waking up and not feeling anxious. It's trusting yourself to walk away. It's choosing yourself even when someone from your past makes it tempting to look back. So when your avoidant ex sends that message and everything in you starts to stir, remember this: peace is quiet, but it's not weak. It's a sign that you've done the work. And now your job is to guard it fiercely. Because not everyone deserves access to the calm you fought so hard to create. When your avoidant ex reaches out, it's incredibly tempting to fall into old habits. You might feel a pull to reconnect, to fix things, to explain yourself, or to seek clarity you never got. That's where a lot of people make a crucial mistake. They react from emotion instead of responding with intention. There's a big difference between the two. Reacting is automatic, impulsive, and often rooted in past wounds. Responding is deliberate. It's rooted in self-awareness and clarity. And if you want to protect your progress and maintain your self-worth, you have to choose to respond, not regress. Regressing means slipping back into the emotional dynamic you had with this person, one where your needs were minimized, your boundaries blurred, and your sense of self was constantly destabilized. It happens quietly and often under the guise of just talking. You tell yourself, it's just a conversation, it's harmless. But those conversations can be emotional time machines. One message turns into five. Five turns into reminiscing. Reminiscing leads to hope. And before you know it, you're emotionally invested again in someone who hasn't shown up any differently than before. Avoidant exes tend to reemerge when they sense distance. Sometimes it's when they feel you've moved on, or when they're lonely, or when they want a familiar emotional fix without the commitment. Their return is rarely a reflection of lasting change. It's often just a moment of emotional curiosity or comfort seeking. And if you respond from a place of unresolved emotion, you'll likely fall back into the same emotional choreography. You giving more, they giving less. You seeking closeness, they retreating again. So how do you stop that from happening? You pause, and then you ask yourself, what part of me wants to respond right now? Is it the healed version of you, or is it the part that still needs closure, still craves validation, or still believes they might change? When you get honest about your motivation, it's easier to make a grounded decision. You start to see the difference between emotional urgency and emotional clarity. Responding instead of regressing means stepping into emotional maturity. It means realizing that just because someone reaches out doesn't mean they're offering something meaningful. Words are easy. A text costs nothing. What matters is their consistent behavior, their accountability, and their emotional availability, none of which are guaranteed just because your phone lit up. Responding with intention might look like asking direct questions. It might look like setting boundaries. It might even look like saying nothing at all. But whatever it is, it comes from a place of power, not emotional desperation. There's also something deeply self-respecting about not going backwards. When you choose not to regress, you're sending a message to yourself that you believe in your growth. You're saying, I deserve more than a recycled connection. I deserve something whole, something present, something real. And that's a truth worth living out. Regression might feel familiar, but that doesn't mean it's right. Familiar doesn't always mean healthy. This is also about emotional timing. When someone reappears, they usually aren't thinking about what their reentry will stir up in you. They might feel ready to talk, but are you ready to engage? Have you healed enough to handle the conversation without losing yourself in it? If not, responding might have to wait, or it might not happen at all. You get to protect your timeline. You don't owe anyone instant access to your heart just because they suddenly remembered how to type hey. Responding, not regressing, also means that you remember who you are outside of that relationship. You're not defined by how that person treated you. You're not defined by the ending. You are defined by how you show up for yourself now. That means making choices that align with the version of you who has boundaries, who has clarity, and who is no longer willing to abandon herself for a hit of temporary connection. So when the message comes and your emotions start swirling, take a step back, breathe, journal, talk to someone who knows your story. Ground yourself in the present. Ask yourself, what would the healed version of me do? Then do that, because you've already lived the story where you gave too much to someone who gave too little. This time, write a different ending, one where you don't regress into old patterns, one where you respond with strength, with clarity, and with love for yourself first. Setting clear boundaries is not about being cold or cutting someone off just to prove a point. It's about protecting your emotional health and creating a space where respect, clarity, and safety can exist. When your avoidant ex texts you, especially after a period of silence, confusion, or emotional inconsistency, that moment is a test, not of your feelings, but of your boundaries. And what you do next will set the tone not only for that interaction, but potentially for the way you handle all future relationships. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guidelines to protect what's important to you. They are expressions of self-respect. And if there's one thing you need to protect when dealing with someone who has a history of avoidance, it's your sense of self. Avoidant partners tend to thrive in relationships where boundaries are unclear, where they can come and go emotionally without consequences, where mixed signals are tolerated, and where your needs are constantly minimized or postponed. When you draw a line clearly, kindly, and firmly, you disrupt that dynamic. Start by being honest with yourself. What are you willing to accept from this person now? Do they get to slide back into your life like nothing happened? Do they get access to your time and energy without addressing the hurt they caused? Do they get to flirt, breadcrumb, or create emotional confusion again? Or do they have to show up with real accountability, respect, and clarity? Your boundary will reflect what you've learned from the past and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. Boundaries begin with internal clarity. You don't have to announce them immediately, but you do have to know what they are before you can communicate or enforce them. Maybe your boundary is that you won't engage in casual conversation unless there's a clear reason for the message. Maybe it's that you need an honest conversation about why they disappeared. Or maybe it's that you won't engage at all unless they've demonstrated consistent changed behavior over time, not just through words, but actions. Setting boundaries isn't easy, especially if you still have feelings for this person. But that's exactly why they're so important. Your feelings are valid, but they should not override your need for emotional safety. If you've been burned before, you already know what happens when you ignore that voice inside telling you something isn't right. Boundaries are how you listen to that voice this time and act on it. Let's be clear, avoidant people often resist boundaries. They may try to guilt you. They may minimize your needs. They may act confused or accuse you of being too much or dramatic. That's not a reflection of your boundary being wrong. It's a reflection of them not being used to someone holding them accountable. And if they truly care, if they've truly changed, they will respect your boundary, not push against it. A person's reaction to your boundary tells you everything about their readiness to be in your life. Sometimes the boundary will be silence, not because you're playing games, but because engaging would reopen a wound you've already worked hard to heal. Other times, the boundary is a direct message. I don't think it's healthy for me to revisit this dynamic. Or if you're reaching out because you've done some real reflection and want to have a grown-up conversation, I'm open to that, but I won't entertain casual check-ins anymore. That level of clarity forces the other person to meet you on your terms or step back. Either way, you win. Boundaries also serve another powerful purpose. They teach you to trust yourself. Every time you set and uphold a boundary, you're reinforcing your self-worth. You're reminding yourself that your needs matter, that your healing is not negotiable, and that emotional access to you is a privilege, not a right. This becomes even more important when dealing with someone whose inconsistency may have previously made you question your instincts. And remember, setting boundaries doesn't guarantee the other person will change. That's not the goal. The goal is to keep you aligned with your values, your healing, and your vision of a healthier future. You don't need their approval to draw a line. You just need the courage to stick to it, even if it means walking away. So when the message comes through and you feel that old pole pause, ask yourself, what boundary will protect me in this moment? Then hold it. That boundary might be the very thing that keeps you from slipping back into something that nearly broke you. And that right there is what self-love looks like in action. Here's the truth. When your avoidant ex texts you out of the blue, it's not just a message, it's a moment to decide whether you'll step into the next version of yourself or slide back into a pattern you've already outgrown. You are not here to be someone's emotional safety net. You are not here to settle for inconsistency, confusion, or emotional breadcrumbs. You've done too much work, cried too many tears, and fought too hard to find your peace to let one text pull you off track. This is your chance to show yourself how far you've come, not by proving anything to them, but by honoring everything you've learned. Recognize the pattern. Protect your peace. Respond with clarity. Set your boundaries. And most importantly, remember who the hell you are. You're not the person waiting by the phone anymore. You're not the person willing to lose yourself to keep someone else around. You're the one who chooses wholeness over history, strength over comfort, self-respect over familiarity. So if and when that message comes, read it with your eyes open. Then act from your worth, not your wounds. You don't need closure from them. You create it with your choices. This isn't about getting back what you had. It's about never losing who you've become.